The nature of globalization is changing. Supply chains are challenged. The strategy recommendation is obvious: resiliency through diversification. But the logistics are incredibly complex. Let's start with some background on the just-in-time theme that dominated supply chain management until recently.
In the decades following the Second World War, Japan grew tremendously. And while there were many reasons for this growth, among them was the innovation of just-in-time delivery. After the war, cash-constrained Japanese companies couldn't finance the acquisition of large inventories of commodities and component parts as easily as their American counterparts. So they pioneered lean manufacturing that made the most efficient possible use of capital, buying only the inputs they needed and getting those inventories there at just the right moment. By the 1980s, Japan had world-beating manufacturing that spanned from automobiles to electronics. This just-in-time lean manufacturing ethos spread worldwide in the 1990s, pushed along by globalization. With the collapse of the Soviet Union and the integration of China into the global economy, and GATT agreements that reduced tariffs, barriers to trade seemed a thing of the past, and just-in-time manufacturing went worldwide, helping to keep a lid on inflation. Everything seemed to go along smoothly until the past 2 years, but now the world is beset by logistical problems all along the supply chain. Blue, from your perspective, what went wrong with just-in-time delivery?
First, even before the pandemic struck, there was some movement toward diversification of supply lines stemming from the Sino-US trade dispute in 2018. Then in 2020, COVID lockdowns began to create severe supply chain disruptions. At the same time, consumer spending shifted away from services toward manufacturing goods, and the demand for manufactured items began to outstrip the global economy's ability to produce them. Finally, in 2022, renewed COVID lockdowns in China deepened the world's logistical challenges for manufactured goods at the same time as Russia's invasion of Ukraine disrupted the supplies of key commodities. We've wound up with a global economy that is more fragmented and less integrated, which poses severe challenges to the just-in-time model.
So where do we go from here? And what happens to the just-in-time lean manufacturing model? How long will it take for the world to resolve its supply chain logistics issues? And what are the macroeconomic implications?
Both companies and governments are making strong moves to diversify supply chains, but it's a complicated and long process that may take years. In the short term, the world's logistical issues might grow worse. China appears to be privileging a strategy of zero COVID over economic growth. And this has implications for manufacturing and consumer product sectors globally. Meanwhile, the impact of the Russian-Ukraine conflict on the commodity markets is just beginning to be felt. Ultimately, consumers are likely to experience the world's logistical challenges in the form of higher prices for manufactured goods. And many companies may see reduced profit margins as input costs climb and they find it more challenging to get products to market. Just-in-time inventory management won't disappear, but making supply chains more resilient will likely come with increased costs.